Good afternoon, gentlemen, and a few of you ladies that may be listening. This is Spiritual Art of War back at it again with another episode. This time we're going to talk about the Diddy case and some of the updates. Right now they have not come to a complete verdict. They've actually, I think 2 of the 5 charges they've already agreed on. They're still working on it. They're still deliberating. So they're going to do it again sometime, hopefully this week. We'll see if there is a verdict on this, but it appears from some of the accounts of what's being reported that Diddy appears to be pretty confident this last week, and it looks like he feels he may either have to not serve a lot of time or he may get off free. However, we don't know. We'll have to see what happens with the verdict. He does have some great lawyers. His lawyers actually did a very good job in this case of defending him according to the U.S. law. Remember, we're not this particular discussion is not about whether or not we agree with the U.S. law. The law is the law, and their interpretation is what it is, right? We are in a a neo-Roman Babylonian system. So what is right and what is wrong varies, and it changes depending on the interpretation of whoever the prosecutors are in this case, and they have a lot of gray areas. So why am I going over this? The reason why I'm going over this is because just like we've talked about before, the social dynamics between men and women in modern day America is one of the most pressing topics out here. In fact, I think it's definitely in the top 3. Okay, 1 is probably economics, the economy. 2 is going to be probably your relationship with the opposite sex, and 3 is going to be probably your future of your own future or the future of your children, because that all ties in together. There are other groups that have a larger voice that make it seem like it's all about that, but like it's really, those are a lot of the things that's kind of going on in some of the more pressing topics. So we have to understand that this particular case, it is going to have a ripple effect on the dynamics. And why do I say that? Because he's being charged with a RICO and sex trafficking charges. Okay, prostitution. And remember that the escorts were male. So it was basically the payment of male escorts for these activities. And of course they had the star witnesses, or the victims, or among the victims within the RICO case, or that they tried to make as victims, is Cassie and Daphne. Okay, meaning Cassie Ventura, the former singer / model that was signed to Bad Boy. We talked about her past. You can go back into previous videos to kind of get caught up with everything. And then also you have Daphne Joy, who is 50 Cent's baby mama. And there's actually a whole nother story with her. She actually has a history prior to 50 Cent where she was involved in a modeling agency that was basically a prostitution, ring, essentially. So this is actually not even the first time she's been a part of like a controversial situation. And that happened when she was younger. But this is actually like part of her story in the industry. Now, the prosecutor presented them as victims. However, the defense made the argument that these women were willing participants and they benefited. Not only that, they also claimed that they did say that they were in love with Diddy, and Cassie admitted that she was envious and thought that if she left Diddy, another woman would take her place, and she didn't want that to happen. So there was motives behind why she continued doing what she's doing, because she wanted to please Diddy, because she did not want to leave the lifestyle. In addition, we have Daphne. Daphne is currently still benefiting from Diddy because he's still paying her rent. He's still taking care of her. Even though she, took the stand against him, she did also say that she still cared about him and thought he was a nice person, and she wanted to have a regular relationship. She did not want to do the freak-offs anymore, and she wanted to have a regular relationship with Diddy. But Diddy, wanted to continue the freak-offs going. And she also talked about how much money she was being paid per month. I did a whole video on that. entitled, about 50 cents baby mama is worth, how much a month. And that actually was an eye-opening thing because, but you have to factor in, I did factor in the fact that she's not doing like OnlyFans and things like that. There's ways that these women that are attractive are able to make money off the simp economy or off of tricks and things like that. But, she did not go those particular routes. And so I kind of see where she would rely on men to, have her lifestyle keep going because she's not getting that much child support from 50 Cent. So unlike what some of these women think that they're going to get a lot of money from these guys, sometimes they don't get enough. That's what some of these women do, the multiple baby daddy thing, or they run around and they still, sell their body to the highest bidder. And so anyway, why is this case, again, important? Because if he's found guilty, if he's found not guilty on these charges, or he gets a slap in the wrist, time served type situation, no RICO, and the other charges get dropped, or whatever, what happens is that things continue as normal with the way men are operating, particularly the men that are highly sought after, high status, high earning, men, your athletes and your entertainers. Because remember, there's a group of men that are very rich, they're very wealthy, but they don't have a name. Okay, so the owner of some of these record labels, the big record labels like your Columbia, your Universal, your Interscope, some of these guys can walk into a Target and no one will know who they are. They can walk in, get their stuff, get out. Same thing with some of these sports owners. They're billionaires. They own all these sports teams. They can walk into a grocery store. Most people won't even, nobody will recognize them except for like a handful of men probably. Okay? But when it comes to entertainers, athletes, these are highly visible men. Lots of followers, lots of talk about them. A lot of women know who they are. And women are always big game hunting, looking for, that lifestyle, right? They're looking for that lifestyle. So if he's found guilty on a RICO, which is crazy, a RICO charge, okay, and the other stuff, the sex trafficking, the prostitution stuff, boy, oh boy, you want to talk about no longer these women would be getting flued out. They would shut that all the way down. Okay? They would shut that all the way down. That stuff would be over. Because, men are not going to take that risk. Especially, they're not going to take that risk. There's really a lot. Some men will still do it. They'll still take that risk if that would happen. But I don't think a lot of these guys that are athletes or entertainers will take that risk. I don't think people understand when you're talking about athletes, because athletes is would be more of an issue for them. But remember, RICO is, they're saying that he used Bad Boy as a front to carry out, illegal activities. So I don't think the RICO would be much as an issue as it would be the other charges, which would be you flying out a woman and, you taking her to Pound Town. If you're one of these celebrities, that stuff has had to be shut down. That would not be happening. One of these athletes that flies women out, because remember, these athletes making stupid money. Even guys on the bench, 6 men is making $25 million a year. You got you got players that never even made an All-Star game, never been All NBA. They're making $35-40 million a year. Now your All NBA players, they're making $50 to $75 million a year. 50 to 70 million a year, or 70 plus. We just had the situation with Shai Gilgeous just signing his extension. He's making $71.5 million over the course of his new contract, not even including his other stuff, his endorsements. So we talking about these guys are making big money. They can fly women out all 365 days of the year. You know what I'm saying? So that stuff will come to an end. So we're gonna see what's gonna happen, man. I wanted to kind of keep it brief and short, but we'll follow up when the verdict does come out, and I will have commentary on that. So let me know what you think in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch y'all on the next episode.